In the world of Formula One, where milliseconds separate champions from also-rans, there's a tale so unbelievable it sounds like fiction. Imagine a driver so spectacularly out of his depth that he managed to get banned not once, but twice in a single season. A driver whose on-track antics became legendary for all the wrong reasons. This is the extraordinary story of Mahaveer Raghunathan, the driver who redefined what it means to be not allowed on track. So let's get started. In the pantheon of Formula One drivers, there are the greats like Schumacher, Senna, and Hamilton. Then there are the less successful, but still respectable racers who make up the bulk of the grid. And then, way down at the bottom, past the pay drivers and the one-hit wonders, we find a category all its own. A category occupied by just one man, Mahaveer Raghunathan. Born in Chennai, India in 1998, Raghunathan's journey to motorsport infamy began like many others, with karting. But that's where the similarities to a typical racing career end. While most future F1 drivers spend years honing their craft in karts, young Mahaveer spent less than a year before leaping single-seaters. It was as if he was rushing to reach the top, unaware that his unconventional path would make him one of the most talked about drivers in recent memory, for all the wrong reasons. Raghunathan's early career was a whirlwind tour of various racing series, each stop marked by underwhelming performances and raised eyebrows. He dipped his toes into the JK Racing Asia Series, the MRF F1600 Championship, and even appeared briefly in the Formula Masters China Series. But it was in 2014 when he truly began to make a name for himself, or perhaps more accurately, when he started to cement his reputation as a driver who was, to put it kindly, out of his depth. That year, Raghunathan found himself in the Italian F4 Championship, a series won by Lance Stroll, another driver whose career would later be subject to much debate. But while Stroll went on to reach Formula One, Raghunathan's performance was far less promising. He finished a distant 12th in the championship, a result that in hindsight looks like a career highlight. Undeterred by his lackluster showing in F4, Raghunathan decided to jump straight into the European F3 Championship in 2015. To put this into perspective, it's like deciding to run a marathon after barely completing a 5K. The results were predictably disastrous. Out of 36 races, Raghunathan showed up for the 33rd and managed to score a total of 0 points. His best finish was a lowly 20th place. Most drivers would take such a humbling experience as a sign to reassess their career choices. Not our man Mahaveer. In 2016, he somehow found his way into the GP3 Series race. It was a one-off appearance that ended exactly as you'd expect, at the back of the field. After his brief and unsuccessful foray into GP3, he made a truly puzzling move, joining the Auto GP Championship, which soon merged with the Boss GP Championship. For those unfamiliar with Boss GP, it's less a stepping stone to F1, and more a playground for wealthy enthusiasts to drive old single-seater race cars. It's the motorsport equivalent of a midlife crisis purchase. In the Boss GP Championship, Raghunathan was behind the wheel of a lowly BO 552, a car developed for the now defunct A1 Grand Prix Series. Despite competing against amateur drivers and outdated equipment, Raghunathan still struggled to make an impact. It wasn't until his second year in Boss GP that Raghunathan finally tasted success, winning the Formula Class title. However, this victory came with a hefty asterisk. His main rival, Johan Lier, missed 4 of the 14 rounds, essentially handing the title to Raghunathan. It was less a triumph of skill and more of a win by default. But then, in 2018, something truly inexplicable happened. Raghunathan vanished from the racing scene, competing in just one event all year, the little-known MRF Challenge. Perhaps he had finally realized that professional racing wasn't his calling. They couldn't have been more wrong. In 2019, against all odds and logic, Raghunathan resurfaced. But he didn't just return to racing. He somehow secured a seat in Formula 2, the direct feeder series into Formula 1. The news of Raghunathan's F2 drive with MP Motorsport sent shockwaves through the racing community. How had a driver with no notable achievements, no championship titles in any recognized series, and a history of subpar performances managed to secure a seat in Formula 2? It was a question that would puzzle pundits and fans alike throughout the season. As the 2009 F2 series got underway in Bahrain, it quickly became clear Raghunathan was out of his depth. In qualifying, he found himself a staggering 3 seconds off pole position, an eternity in motorsports terms. To put this in perspective, the 18th place driver was only 1.7 seconds off pole. Raghunathan wasn't just at the back of the grid, he was in a different time zone. After the feature race in Bahrain, Raghunathan made a decision that would set the tone for his entire F2 career. Instead of slowing down after the checkered flag, as in standard practice, he decided to try and set his fastest lap of the weekend. After the race had finished, this baffling and dangerous move put other drivers and marshals at risk. earning Raghunathan his first penalty points of the season. It would not be his last brush with the stewards. As the season progressed, Raghunathan's performances became the stuff of legend, but not in the way we might have hoped. In Baku, he provided one of the season's most memorable moments when he missed a turn into the tight castle section and found himself stuck on the escape road. What followed was 2 minutes of live television gold as Raghunathan struggled to turn his car around, engaging reverse gear at a staggering 247 times in the process. The incident quickly went viral, spawning countless memes and cementing Raghunathan's reputation as F2's most infamous driver. His fellow competitors couldn't help but join in on the mockery, with F2 rival Callum Ilott demonstrating the Mahaveer interpretation of how to navigate a corner. In qualifying sessions, he was consistently 5 to 6 seconds off the pace of his teammate, Jordan King, in identical machinery. To make matters worse, Raghunathan seemed to have a unique talent for accumulating penalty points. In Baku, he failed to stop at the weighbridge. In Monaco, he caused a crash with Jack Eichen. In Spa, he was caught speeding under yellow flags. It seemed at every race, Raghunathan found new and creative ways to fall afoul of the stewards. The pinnacle of Raghunathan's penalty collecting spree came at the Paul Ricard circuit in France. In a single feature race, he accumulated an astonishing 9 penalty points. His crime was failing to follow the virtual safety car procedure not once, not twice, but 3 separate times. Each infraction earned him 3 points, bringing his total for the race to 9. A feat that left even the most seasoned F2 observers speechless. With 12 penalty points to his name, the maximum allowed before sanctions kick in, he was banned from the following round in Austria. It was a dubious achievement. Raghunathan had become the first F2 driver to be banned from accumulating too many penalty points. But even this wasn't enough to deter our intrepid racer. Upon his return, Raghunathan seemed determined to test the limits of the steward's patience once again. By November, he had managed to accrue another 12 penalty points, narrowly avoiding a second ban only because it was the end of the season. Among all the penalties and struggles, there was one bright spot in Raghunathan's F2 career, if you can call it that. In Monza, he scored his first and only championship point. However, this wasn't due to a sudden improvement in form. Rather, it resulted from a chaotic race where nearly half of the field failed to finish. Raghunathan, by simply making it to the end, found himself classified in 10th place. As the 2019 season drew to a close, Raghunathan's F2 stats made for grim reading. 1 point scored, 24 penalty points accumulated, and 2 race bans. 1 served, 1 narrowly avoided. It was a record that seemed unlikely to be matched or desired by any future F2 driver. After a 2-year hiatus from professional racing, during which many hoped he had hung up his helmet for good, Raghunathan resurfaced in the most unlikely of places, behind the wheel of a Formula 1 car. What do you think is the most unbelievable part of Raghunathan's story? His entry into F2, his numerous penalties, or his subsequent F1 tests? Share your thoughts in the comment section, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you next time.